I can't believe this is happening again. I don't know what to draw. What should I draw? Maybe I should just go eat waffles. Man, I definitely need some waffles. Oh. Welcome to the first ever episode of Making It, where I'm going to be making stuff from comics to this to that. I don't know what I want to be making, but today I'm going to be making a comic strip. That's what I'm going to make. Alright, here's some backstory. I'm not much of a comics guy. I didn't grow up reading comics, or I didn't even own that many comics in the first place. But what I do like are these newspaper style comics, the ones that has a couple of panels in them and it's funny at the end of it. Yep, that one. You can see a version of that in the modern Instagram world, and I kind of like those things. I've made comics like that in the past, not much, just a couple, and I make them whenever I have an itch to make comics, like I do right now. Alright, enough talk, let's get this party started. No, not that kind of party. Alright, so the comics I've made in the past were just made with pencils, pen, and good old-fashioned paper. But today I'm going to be using my iPad. Because it's easy, it's technology. I like technology. I don't know why people are afraid of technology.
So is it any wonder people are afraid of technology? Technology!
So here's how we start. When it comes to making comics or making anything, story is king. It's paramount. You can focus on all the technical aspects of the craft and draw as detailed as you want with all the beautiful colors and the line work and all that other crap. If your story isn't good, your comic ain't gonna be good. I gotta tell you, I didn't know what I wanted to draw for my comic strip in the first place, so I did what I did when I don't have any ideas. Just sit in front of my computer and just browse Instagram. And a weird thing happened, and I happened to capture that on camera.
Here you have a wild fish in its natural habitat, browsing Instagram and hoping to get an idea for his comic. Little did he know he's about to have a moment of revelation. Nature is indeed wonderful.
So once I got an idea, you gotta test it out, right? So that's what I did. I just put that idea out to the folks in my studio and it worked. They all laughed. It was a success. It's just amazing to be validated by your peers, isn't it? So the way I get ideas for my comics is either through personal experience, something that has happened in my own life, or through the experiences of other people, right? Meaning I can't just go and experience what other people have experienced. I'm not a psychic. I just, hear about what other people have experienced or witnessed, and I take that thing in, put that in my comic, and boom, idea, make that, put it out there, cool, right? So this is one of such things. I haven't experienced this myself, but I've seen tons and tons of Indian kids who finished high school, wanting to do great things in life, go through this particular thing. And that is what I'm about to capture in this comic. It's gonna be a relatable comic, right? Hashtag relatable. That's what this comic is all about. The first step for me in the process of comic making is to thumbnail stuff. This is the phase where you're trying to rough out your ideas with a simple sketch. You're trying to figure out a bunch of things here. What should the panel structure of my comic be? Where should the characters appear? When should they appear? What kind of camera angles will they have? Where will the speech bubble be placed? And most importantly, how your eye or attention flows through the comic. The comic I'm making is a standard 6-panel comic, meaning it has 6 panels. You can think of it like 3 acts. Act 1 is a setup for your story. Act 2 is the problem or the exploration of that setup. And Act 3 is usually the conclusion and an element that adds comedy or any other emotion that you want. But me, comedy. I'm a comedy man. Your typical 4-panel comic covers these aspects in just 4 panels instead of 6, like I'm doing here. This is just a rough structure that I keep in mind when I'm doing my thumbnailing. It's not like something strict or set in stone. I just keep this in the back of my mind. I thumbnail, I rough out the ideas that I want to sort of explore. I move things around, I try different things, I just, see what works. That is the most important part of this phase, because before you move to the sketching phase, you need your ideas somewhat set in stone. That is what I at least try to do. And one of the main things I'm trying to explore in this particular thumbnailing phase is get that eye or the attention flow through the comic well, because that is very important for me, and that is something I see a lot of beginner comic makers, if that is a word, make. So yeah, getting that thing right, important. So once I'm satisfied with the thumbnails and I've logged on to the things that I want to log on, I move on to sketching the comic. And my boy, this phase is probably one of the most important phases in the phases of making comics. I don't know how many phases they have, but this phase is very important, way important than my phase. The sketching phase is where I take the rough thumbnail I've made for the strip and start drawing it properly with all the necessary details. This means you gotta draw your characters and settings well and be ready to draw them over and over again and make them look similar. Because you don't want to start out with Harry Potter on the first panel and end up with Harry Potter on the last panel, right? You don't want that. You just don't want that. The comic I'm making is happening inside of a car, and I didn't want to draw the background of a car over and over again because it's 6 panels. So I drew the background once and repeated that thing over and over again for the rest of the panels. Again, the power of technology.
Technology!
Now this solves the problem of background consistency for the comic because of course this is a small strip. It might work different if you're making like a big comic book. Another problem people seem to face is character consistency, meaning having the characters look the same throughout the comic. And it's simple for me, at least. The thing is, the process is pretty simple for me when it comes to character consistency. Here's what I do. I break down my characters to the basic, simplest shapes that I can break them down into and measure their proportions and try to maintain their proportions throughout the other panels. And that is what I do, just shapes, proportions, then maintain that proportions throughout the entire strip. If you know like proportions and forms and shapes, it's gonna be easy for you. Check out Drawing Camp. Gotta tell you, the process of making this comics was a lot harder than I expected. You know, I was expecting to finish this comic in like a single day. Then it took me sort of like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 days. It took me 3 days to finish this comic. That's a lot more days than I expected. Most of the comics I make usually take anywhere between 4 to 5, sometimes 6 hours for me to make, you know, like sketching it, inking it, coloring it, adding all the shadows. Yeah, you have these multiple processes of making comics, so many processes, and you gotta do that thing, do each and every single processes over and over and over again. And this is a 6-panel comic and this took way longer. By the way, the software that I use is Procreate and the tablet that I use is of course iPad Pro. You already know that. And the brush I use is dry ink because people keep asking me, Keshav, what brush do you use? I don't know, toothbrush. So dry ink, that is the brush that I use for each and every single piece of artwork and comic that I make. I won't ever change that brush ever in my entire life, so please stop asking me. So on day 1, I finished all the sketching for my comic. On day 2, started sketching and doing inking for my comic. So that is usually the thing that follows my sketching phase. I ink things. I'm an inker. I like to ink things. I've probably explained this process of me doing digital art like a million times, but hey, why not do it one more time, right? I lay down my inks after the sketches, and usually I use a variation of different line weights to do my inks, and obviously I just go with whatever I feel like, you know. Some areas I like to keep it thick, some areas I like to keep it thin, and I go from thin to thick, from thick to thin, then thin to thick to thin to thick, you know, you get the thing. Then once I'm done with the inking phase, I do my flats. So flats is the phase where I just lay down all the colors, the simple colors for my comic. Actually, I had a lot of troubles picking the right kind of colors for this illustration piece. I was imagining something on the cooler end of the spectrum, but turns out the universe was like, nope, things are gonna be warm for you, son. So everything turned out to be warm. Lots of reds, lots of oranges, lots of warm, hot colors. Not like the colors are hot, but like warm. You get the idea. So once I locked in on the colors, laid down the flats, added some shadows on top, which is usually what I do. And especially when I'm making comic strips like this, I gotta keep the process simple so that I can actually repeat it over and over again. Because man, 6 panels, it's a lot of panels. Try doing 100 panels. It's a lot of panels actually. So, and I'm new to this, that's why it feels so much to me. So yeah, there are folks who just do this like Steven Seagal in an action movie. Yeah, it's easy for some folks. For me, it's not, because I'm new. I'm getting started on this thing. So that was the process. And once I got done with the entire process of making this little strip, I printed it out and I had it in my hand and I looked at it and I was like, oh boy, this is one satisfying piece of artwork at the end of it, because it was all worth the boredom. And 3 days of just non-stop me grinding to finish that piece, it was just worth it. I looked at it and I was like, oh boy, this is why people do stuff they hate, because they like the result. Okay, so I'm gonna be reading my own comic right now. The Road Not Taken. I don't know why I'm reading this. It's pretty text. The Road Not Taken. That is the name of my comic strip, alright? Here's how it goes. So, son, now that you've finished school, what are you planning on becoming, huh? Engineering or doctor? None of that, pa. I want to try something new. Do something different. Go on a path no one has gone before. Oh, my boy. He wants to do something different. Accounting it is then. Yeah, that is the comic. This is the part where you clap. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty, so there you have it. This is the final comic, and I'm so happy how it turned out. It's beautiful. I gotta make more of these things, right? These little mini comics and mini projects. It's beautiful, and it's making me really happy.